Hey everyone, thanks for watching. This is a topic I know I needed to put on, and I found someone that I know and trust to sort of talk about it, and that is out-of-state investing. So I've got Bobby Sharma with me. How you doing today, Bobby?
I'm doing great, Michael. Great to be on your show. And as you know, I'm your subscriber and I do watch all your videos. So keep up the good work. And yeah, I'm really thrilled to be here.
I appreciate that, Bobby. It means a lot to me that people are watching, and the numbers show these interviews are clearly a hit. So we're going to keep doing a couple a day until nobody wants to talk to me anymore. So that's good. So before we jump into out-of-state investing and why that can be right for some investors, I just feel we have to stay core to this channel and sort of talk about how you got started in real estate. What do you do for yourself? That kind of stuff. So we can get to know Bobby, and then we'll talk about the other aspects.
Great, absolutely. So I got the real estate investing bug. Actually, I was pretty early. It was 24. I was 24. I lived in Riverside, California, and I had a job in a small town called Corona on the way to Orange County from Riverside, and I knew I was going to be there for a while. So what happened is I was driving on a Sunday afternoon, came across a for sale sign, and went into the house, and long story short, ended up buying that house and doing what's called house hacking
Yeah,
back before it was
before it's popular.
before it was popular. I didn't know I was doing it, but I was single. It was a 3-bedroom ranch house, 3-bedroom, 2 bath. I put an ad on the local Riverside paper, and I got 2 roommates. So that covered most of my mortgage. Actually, all of my mortgage. The only thing I came out of pocket was the property taxes and insurance.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was when I was 24, and
So
then
just
that
two
was
or three years ago.
well, I was 2 or 3 decades more like it. But thank you. But no, it was a while back, and that was in Southern California.
Yeah.
And then the recession came, and the prices got depressed. And then changed jobs, ended up in the Bay Area,
Hmm.
and so in 2010. I started buying a little bit more aggressively. I realized that those, from 2007 to 2010, I was renting, and
Yep.
I really couldn't afford those prices. I was not in one of those .com companies,
Yeah.
so
I
so
remember. Yeah. Yeah. It's tough.
yeah, exactly right. So I ended up just renting, but in 2010 it made it really compelling to step back in and start buying again. So I went out to the auctions in
Yep.
Oakland, in Santa Clara,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and at the courthouse steps, um, and did a few flips. I realized that doing flips was very stressful. I
Yeah.
still had a full-time job. So I became a lender to some of the contractors that I was working with. I became a private money lender
Okay.
instead of actually doing and managing the rehabs myself.
Hmm.
I found a few trusted folks that I had met at networking events, meetup events, and that's how I started lending. I still lend to some of them to this day,
Hmm.
I'm just basically a private money lender.
Okay.
Uh, but along the way, I picked up a few rentals,
Sure.
and but what kind of got me intrigued about out of state investing was when I started to travel to the Midwest. Especially, I went to Kansas City,
Uh-huh.
and I realized, even with property management, even with higher vacancy rates, uh, my cash flow was going to be so much greater than out here in California. Although California, even at that time, had great appreciation, and I can't knock that, right? I mean,
Right.
appreciation right in our backyard, I'll take that all day long.
Yep.
Um, and actually, just like you, Michael, I ended up 5.5 years ago investing in Fresno, California as well.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. So yeah,
so I found
2012, 13. That's not a bad time. That's good.
not a bad time, right? And you've done really well there. And I worked with a local broker contractor, and we have done numerous deals. Over, I want to say, over 40 flips in that time,
Wow.
maybe coming up on 50. So just having the right team makes a big difference.
Sure.
So Fresno market has been great. Um, Out of state investing is tricky, and
Yeah.
and I and for your audience, for your subscribers, I'm happy to share the things that I learned the hard way,
Yeah.
and I'm happy to kind of share my pain, and I hope that they don't encounter the kinds of issues that I encountered.
Yeah. So yeah, so we sort of put a pin in this first section. You started in Southern California when you were in your 20s. It's always great. You were house hacking before it was house hacking. That's awesome. Your jobs changed. You moved different locations. You saw the opportunities. Sort of 2010 on. You realized that flipping's a full-time job, which I've said for years. I mean, God, I can't imagine doing both those. You went to private money because there was a way for you to stay in the game and active with the team. You've added
Correct.
rentals. Your job took you to the center of the country, and you started doing what real estate investors do. I can't go anywhere and not drive around and go, oh, look at that. Oh, look at that.
Exactly.
And start to see a better return. So, I know we've talked a couple of times. I've never done out of state investing, right? So I'll come to this interview as the quote unquote skeptic, right? I'll ask you all the hard questions.
Absolutely.
But it's really not that much different, if I'm honest, than Fresno. The only difference is I'm driving 2.5 hours versus flying 2.5 hours, right? And obviously there's a cost difference and all that nonsense. But
Yeah.
I'm not investing 30 minutes from my house, so I kind of intuitively get it. And I've been through 6 different property management firms and realized what could happen. And my fear is, oh God, if that was in another state, what would happen then? But so it's interesting. But once you find a team, right, you find a way into a team that works. I get it. So let's talk about some of the lessons learned, and let's talk about that, because I brought you here to really educate us all on the do's and don'ts of out-of-state investing.
Yeah. So the biggest challenge by far in out-of-state investing is the local team,
Yeah.
that really kind of goes to the core of our business, which is fundamentally there's plenty of deals. What
Right.
Californians are so spoiled that when we see a nice 3-bedroom 2-bath for 60, 70, $80,000, we think it's a steal.
Right.
But the locals know that that's not a steal.
Yeah.
The locals know that that's not, they wouldn't pay that much.
Mm.
So the first thing I did was I went to the source to find the best deals. I peeled the onion. I went away from the MLS. I worked with some wholesalers, not always, but every now and then we bought from wholesalers. But eventually, through making a few mistakes along the way, buying incorrectly,
Yeah.
I'm in a deal right now where we bought incorrectly. Luckily, the market is still there for a decent return, but it's nowhere near
Yeah.
what we had projected it to be. But to make a long story short, buy correctly, build your team, which sounds easy. And I know you went to Fresno, and you probably had some challenges
Oh
along.
yeah.
Yes. So finding people that are as ethical or as highly motivated as we are, it's tough, and but after a little bit of trial and error,
Yeah.
I did finally tap into a couple of really good local rehabbers, local contractors. It took me a lot of referrals, a lot of phone calls, talking to them, meeting with them. And what I have done now is I have a partner, and we have agreed that him or I will fly out to the towns that we're buying in
Yeah.
at least once every other month. So
Yeah.
that's our That's our plan, is fly out at least one other month. So every 4 weeks, either he's out there
Yeah.
or I'm out there. So having some eyes is very important for the rehabs to go successfully.
Yeah.
Property management, yeah, you do have to ask around, get a lot of referrals, do a lot of online checking, and that's how you would find, again, a little bit of trial and error, but eventually we did end up with some really good property managers in Huntsville, in Kansas City, St. Louis area, Savannah, Georgia. So we are in 7 markets.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of, along the way, there was some bumps, but there's nothing to replace you're having some boots on the ground. So if one of your listeners was saying, you know what, I want to buy in, say, pick a market, Indianapolis, very tricky market, comps, number one, because of weather, the summers are the busiest, so it's very hard to find good labor during the summer months in those states, and then as winter sets in, as fall sets in, then there's people available, but they can't do a lot of the external work. There's no roofing work and all that, right? So those are the factors, and their thunderstorms and hailstorms are a lot more drastic or dramatic than what we see out here.
Yeah.
So weather is a factor.
Yeah.
Also, you never do a lease where the tenant is going to vacate in one of the winter months.
Yeah.
So you do the lease so that they're going to vacate in spring or summer, maybe fall.
Yeah.
But finding tenants in the winter months is very difficult.
Okay. Yeah. There's so many things to consider. It's I'm actually meeting somebody later today that's like, I'm going to buy a property in Ohio. And I'm like, well, you've never been to Ohio. First off, you've never met the team out there. I don't know anything about the deal, but I am scared to death for you. You haven't gotten a referral. You haven't checked them out, right? How do you know they're not, to all your points, right? A, how do you know you're not overpaying, right? Because you're right. The average California investor sees a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage and it's under $100,000. They're like, must be a steal. When, oh, by the way, it's probably worth $60,000. So they're paying $30,000 too much. Exactly. They don't know anything about the rental market. They don't know anything about the quality. They have no concept of, like we just brought about winter, right? I've never had to worry about that, right? We have 2 seasons out here, wet and dry, right? It's no big deal. It's never below 60 or rarely. So, I mean, there's just so many things that I think California or out-of-state investors, I just don't, I guess I'll say it this way. I don't think any out-of-state investor should do it themselves. It's too risky. There's too many gotchas, all of that. So I see the benefit. I've known, and we're going to talk about yours. I've known turnkey firms, right? You have to investigate. Okay. So tell me about your team. You said Huntsville. Tell me about Huntsville. Tell me about your team in Indianapolis. And the team is what has to be sold, right? It's make sure I can get plugged in. Cause again, Californians, people in the Valley where we both live, right? Cash usually is not the problem, but it's, we're also, some of us are too aggressive or too foolish with our money. And, we're willing to risk it on some promise that someone made that we've never met. And
Absolutely.
we have to stop that. And I'm trying to put out stuff like that. And that's why I'm trying to talk to lots of people and do interviews like this. So why don't you tell me, pick a team. I don't care which one it is. Let's talk about one of your teams.
Let me pick Huntsville,
just
because that's the market that we are most active in. And I'll tell you about another market where things went really smoothly. Mm-hmm. I'll first describe a market where things did not go smoothly, and then one that went pretty well. So Huntsville, we read, was a very active market, and investors from all over, the inflated markets of Florida, the inflated markets in Atlanta, Nashville, they were starting to look at Huntsville. And then Huntsville made a couple of announcements about building an automotive plant. And so it's a relatively small market, only 210,000 people in Huntsville. So it's a relatively small market. But we like the demographics. It's the biggest R&D defense industry R&D facility outside of Washington, D.C. A lot of federal defense money in Huntsville. So overall, we liked the demographics. Better than the demographics were better than the rest of Alabama. So more educated people, more degrees with college, more people with college degrees, and so on. So we went with a local broker who had a rehab crew, and what we found out was there was a little bit of a conflict of interest in his business model, right? Sure. He was selling us properties that needed rehab, but he was also buying properties that he was rehabbing and then selling. So, a little bit of a conflict of interest.
Yeah, that's not okay. That relationship would end in my book.
It did not last very long. Their property management was, subpar.
Yeah.
So we ended up changing teams. We ended up going with a different rehabber and a different property management company. So after we changed the teams, then it was a little bit easier. It's become a little bit easier since then. But again, this new company, one is only doing rehabs. They don't buy and sell to other investors. They don't have their own inventory.
Yep.
They're just a rehab crew.
Yep.
Just a licensed contractor. The property management, again, they only do property management. They don't do other things that would compete with their client's business. So now the relationship's a little bit cleaner. One of the things that I will warn your subscribers is if they're buying from wholesalers, the wholesalers have really come a long ways and they've become very savvy.
Yeah.
So when they see a 650-415,
oh yeah, I know that. Yeah. They see our area code's coming.
Yeah, they go, you know what? Christmas is coming early, I would say California investors are getting taken advantage of by a lot of out-of-state providers.
I agree.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of a learning curve, and even though
let's just put this in it, because nobody watching this channel should be working in Silicon Valley or New York or any of these high-priced areas, SoCal, and be buying from wholesalers in other states. You don't know the market. They see you as this big fat whale, and they are going to take a huge chunk out of you, so much so that you can't even get rid of this property.
Yep.
So if you're following my channel, I do not want you doing these wholesale deals with people you've never met in towns you've never been to.
Yeah.
Right? That's off the table. The only thing that I would push on this channel is buying turnkey rentals in other markets where the team, you investigated the team, the sign lease, all these other factors. Let's just take dealing with wholesalers is not, you have a day job.
Yeah.
Go do your day job. Go get very good at making your day job work. And then let's see what else makes sense. So let's just take that off the table, because that's just a lesson. I could just see now people's wallets being cut in half.
Cut in half.
And given to someone else. It's not good.
Yeah. Michael, very sound advice. Very sound advice. I would, I hope your subscribers and listeners do take that into consideration, like very seriously, because they'll save themselves a lot of pain and a lot of agony and a lot of money by. There are turnkey providers. Not all turnkey providers are created equal, but at least they need to do their homework. Mm-hmm. Is the property even going to appraise? Is the are the inspections? Who did the inspections? is the lease, are you buying a property that's vacant? Um, and if they ever Google this gentleman named Clayton Morris in Indianapolis, you'll probably hear all about the scams that happened around Morris Invest. But again, a lot of Californian investors have made so much money in their rental properties, and they feel like, you know what, they can go buy 10 homes in Atlanta or in Jacksonville or whatever. But really, you have to be very careful. You have to you might have to jump on a plane if you're about to invest $100,000, $200,000. It makes sense for you to get on Southwest Airlines and go there and spend 4 days.
Yeah, I've told people specifically, right? And not to pick on Cleveland, but that just comes to mind because that's the conversation I'm having later. And I asked him point blank, so have you been there? The answer is no. I'm like, well, okay, red flag number one. Are you going there? No, I don't want to go to Cleveland. It's the winter. I'm like, well, if you're not willing to go see where you're going to put your money and you're willing to just cut a 6-figure check, I'm here to tell you that's a very bad idea. That's at least stupid, if not a darn right bad idea. So there's my opinion. And they you could take it or leave it. If you're going to put money, I don't care if it's 10 grand into another city that you've never been to and you're not willing to go there, don't invest there. It's dumb. Right. And the other thing to do. So here's the other thing about turnkey providers around the country is your job is this, high-priced area wherever you're living. It doesn't make sense. Your job is to investigate that person, that team, their teams. That's what your homework is, right? You don't have to know the area. Your job is to go figure out who's a dirtbag and who's good at what they do. That's what you have to do for your own investments. Yep. Then if then you weed out the 50% that are terrible or not good, and then you find the other 50%. Now you at least know who you're talking to, because if they're good, the market's all the same, right?
Absolutely.
If it's Indianapolis, I've heard 10%, right? All of them are going to be around 9 or 10 caps, right? If it's Alabama or somewhere else, maybe it's an 8, but they're all all the good ones will be close, right? Yep. The markets weed out overpriced and underpriced good people. Your job as a California investor, just to pick on us, is to do your job and investigate the team and the principals and who they have on the ground. That's your job. That's it. That's what you focus on. So that's what I got to tell people to do.
Like I said, very sound advice. I hope that your friend listens to you and takes another look. I'm not saying that all properties in Cleveland are horrible, but get to know.
As far as I know, all of them are great. I can't tell you. I've never been there, right? And how could you guess? I mean, how could you look at a piece of paper and a Google Maps and go, that's a good investment? Yeah. Real estate is a physical thing. You need to go see it, touch it, look at like-kind investments, look at appraisals that call out different things. You need to look at the rental market and say, hey, is this one overpriced? Is this underpriced? That's the neighbor. What's the house behind? What's the school? You can't do that from your freaking computer, people. Stop it. Stop believing. The next time I see somebody respond to 15 cap in, Bumble, wherever, I'm like, come on.
Toledo, Ohio, or Buffalo, New York.
Yeah, just stop. Come on, people. That's not okay. Let's be smarter than that.
It's a formula for disaster.
Yeah, it's pain and misery.
Yeah, and I would say maybe we can do a follow-up event, Michael, to teach your subscribers, listeners, on what questions to ask.
Oh.
What are the right questions to ask as you're interviewing these people, these brokers, and there's at least 10 or 15 questions, which will take maybe a 30-minute phone call. Yeah. And they'll know by the end of that phone call whether they should be working with that person or not.
Yeah. Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Yeah. And again, I want to go back to the point. If you're seriously thinking about out-of-state investing, your job is not to pick a market. Your job is to pick a provider. And your job is to be very good at sniffing out the good from the bad. So that's what you need to get good at doing. So whether it's the list of questions and all of that and referrals and all of that, I think Bobby brings up a good idea. We should look at doing that, at least provide our examples, and you're free to create your own and all of that. So
absolutely.
Why don't we look to wrap this up, Bobby? Do me a favor and talk about your meetups. Those are very exciting. I think I saw a post on Facebook. I think you said you went to your 7th year of doing this and like 3,000 members or something crazy. Why don't you talk about that? Because that's some awesome stuff.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, so so today, Saturday, I did hit the 3,000 member mark, and I was really thrilled. I was, and so basically, for 7 years, I wanted to. When I got back into real estate back in 2010, 11, I used to live in Emeryville. And there were no good meetups out in the East Bay. They were all in San Jose, San Francisco.
Sure.
And I'd come home from work and then drive down an hour and a half with the traffic. And I said, okay, forget it. I got to start one out in the East Bay. So in Oakland, we started meeting in Oakland, and that grew. We just the first meetup was me and 3 other guys in a bar in downtown Oakland.
Got to start somewhere.
You got to start somewhere, right? So we fortunately just kept growing. I kept the meetups on a regular basis, and then finally we started meeting in a bigger restaurant, and we outgrew that bigger restaurant, and then we finally split up into 3 different locations: San Francisco, San Leandro, and San Mateo. So I was watching people commute every day to come to my meetup, and I felt bad for them. So I said, you know what, I'll come to you guys.
That's nice.
Yeah. So that meetup has grown really, really well. Bay Area real estate moguls. We meet at least once a month, and would love to have you there, Michael. Have you come and present as well?
Anytime.
I think you've got a remarkable story for somebody that's kind of retired or semi-retired.
Yeah, retired's fine. I like that. I don't have a day job. That works for me. Yeah. I think you've done really well. So very, very proud of you. Very happy. So how could one of these subscribers look up Bay Area Real Estate Moguls? Is it a Facebook group or is it?
If they actually just go to bayflip.com, BAYFLIP.com.
Okay.
Or betterturnkey.com. Betterturnkey.com is my turnkey website. But if they go there, all my events are listed on those pages, and they can just click there and go there, or they can just Google Bay Area Real Estate Moguls.
Nice.
But I hope to have you there, and hope to have some of your subscribers in the Bay Area over there too.
You just let me know. Let me know when, and I'll bring my dancing shoes. It'll be a lot of fun. I love talking in front of groups. They're always a lot of fun. So Bobby, I want to thank you for this. I like that we already have a call to action where we're going to do another video very focused on the interviews, because that's the big deal for me. I know out-of-state investing could work. I know some people that do it really well, but it's not. We have to change our mindset as investors. It's not about the deal, right? All the California real estate, all the stuff I do, it's about the deal. No, if you're going out of state, the deal is second. Your primary goal is the team and the people and all of that. So you need to realize that. So Bobby, I want to thank you for giving us your time and sort of bringing this to the forefront. I know we'll do some more stuff together. And with that, I want to thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Pleasure. All right. Take care.